Welcome to New Game Plus, a retro gaming podcast where three guys spend 7 days playing one old game and then we talk about it. My name's Dustin.
My name is Kenny.
I don't feel very good.
Oh, and this is episode 335.
335.
And it is a Patreon poll!
Splash. Give me
Love-
the hot dogs. Why do I always talk about hot
Love
dogs?
the summer vibes. Yeah, get off of the hot dog.
I want a hot dog.
It is the continuation of our summer pool party where every other week this summer we are selecting not from our grand retro master list but from a smaller pool of games from our patrons. If you'd like to be a part of that, then you can support us on NGP podcast by going to patreon.com/NGP podcast.
There it is.
Well
and
said.
For $5 or more a month, you can support us and submit your games to the pool party. Today's game is one of those Patreon pool selected games. We'll talk about it in a bit.
hype.
But before we do, when this episode releases, Summer Games Done Quick has begun. And they are playing games like Shadow of the Colossus, Spyro the Dragon, you fools and idiots. I'm specifically talking to my co-hosts here.
Hey.
Blaster Master.
Okay.
Yo, we're rude to Spyro when we pulled them on the podcast.
I thought that was the name of
He's
the game.
adorable. The game is overrated.
Blaster Master, Ocarina of Time. Speaking of overrated,
Okay.
Wind Waker, Wind Waker,
He's
and
just
many
mad.
other NGP related titles. Hey, walk away, Kenny. It's fine. Kenny, Nolan, are you
What?
looking forward to watching any of these either live or after the show is over because they'll upload all of those VODs? What games and runs are you looking forward to watching?
Because you already ruined by talking about Shadow of the Colossus, I won't bring that one up, though it would make my list. I will say Perfect Dark, I'm excited to revisit. That's
Ooh,
a great game. We had so much fun playing it on the podcast.
No, we
and
didn't.
What? I mean,
Bad
didn't
memory.
we?
No, it was early on. We didn't have our N64 controllers yet. We didn't know what we were doing with podcasting, and
Oh,
we did not
no.
give Perfect Dark a fair rap.
Did we not give it New Game Plus? Wait, hold on. We can't go down
We
this
maybe
rabbit
need to revisit this.
hole. Yeah, we do.
That is one that certainly needs to be revisited. I believe we did not give it our vote for New Game Plus status. It would
that
be
is
very simple
wrong.
to look right now. Perfect Dark was our third game. We didn't know what we were doing.
We played it
And-
so early.
And we unanimously said no. So Kenny saying that we enjoyed our time with it was wrong.
Oh my god. We need to delete that.
Isn't that bad?
Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
bad take.
anyways.
We do have a few bad takes. There's some that we didn't miss and people disagree with, but that's I think probably
Right.
one of them. No, I'm excited to watch the Perfect Dark playthrough. Like that game.
Oh, yeah,
I-
it's going to be great.
Yeah.
Nolan,
Yeah.
games you're looking forward to.
For me, it's some of the ones you mentioned, but the Lord of the Rings Return of the King
Yes, saw
is
that.
going to be really sick. I like that game, and I'm interested in seeing it speed ran. I've never seen the run
Ruined.
of that game. Yeah, ruined. So that'll be one that I'll look for. Celeste is another one that is super entertaining to watch runners go through because that's one that's actually mind-blowing to me because I've played the game and I'm like, you have to spend so much time getting the movement so perfect. It's really amazing. So I'm going to check those two out.
Other than the ones that I mentioned, Link's Awakening is something I'm looking forward to because I
True.
watched you, Nolan, run it so much at the very beginning of
Actually, yeah, I didn't see that one.
running the new Link's Awakening, or the 2019, was it 2019?
Yeah, 2019.
Link's Awakening, and to see, and so I kind of knew it at that point because I watched you do it
Yeah.
so much, but to see how much it's changed because you know it's changed.
Definitely some, yeah.
Like, I would bet drastically changed.
Well,
It's
I'm
been a
still in the
couple
Discord,
years.
so I still peek in there every once in a while, but yeah.
Okay. I'm also looking forward to watching Doom Eternal. Watching any first-person shooter like that is fun, but Doom, like,
But
they're just gonna
Doom,
like
yeah.
fly through that stuff, and it's always so much fun.
So
to watch.
gory. Doom's, yeah, it's great to watch.
But we're planning to have it on at the beginning and not turn it off until the end. Just let it stay streaming on in our house. And if you would like to watch you can tune in on the GDQ website or on Twitch. I also just found out that it was in Minnesota, and so I should have gone over and done live reporting. It's open to the public, but you have to register. Yeah. It's going to be a great week of fast games and raising money for a good cause. You don't want to miss it. I promise you'll get a kick out of it. Like in our retro game of the week, Dark Messiah of Might and Magic and Kicks.
Overview.
Dark Messiah of Might and Magic came out in 2006 for the personal computer. Just a little bit later, it came out for the Xbox 360 and was subtitled Elements in honor of our monthly bonus episode.
It was a nod to us.
It was a nod.
Yeah.
It is a first-person action RPG a la Skyrim.
Yeah.
A la the Elder Scrolls. We'll say that.
A la the Elder Scrolls, a la Thief.
A la Dishonored.
A la
maybe?
Dishonored. Yeah. Speaking
a la
of,
Mode.
this was developed by Arcane Studios, which then later went on to develop Dishonored.
Yeah, no surprise.
I have played the first one, not the second one. Nolan, you've played the first one, not the second one.
Same,
and
yeah.
Kenny has probably watched some of it.
Yeah, I don't play video games.
And this game, Dark Messiah, was published by Ubisoft, which around here we call Ubisoft because that's better, which is known for ruining the Assassin's Creed series, among other games.
I mean, you're a fan. You get to say that, so.
Dark Messiah of Might and Magic is a reboot. So I believe this is correct. Around 2006, maybe obviously a little bit before, I believe Ubisoft acquired the company, something along those lines, and so they rebooted the Might and Magic series with Might and Magic, or Heroes of Might and Magic 5, something along these lines, and Dark Messiah of Might and Magic. They had never done a first-person game in the Might and Magic series before because that's not what it's known for. Kenny, tell us all about it.
I mean, there's a branch of it that's first persons. We played one.
Yeah, we played one.
Yeah, there's two sort of veins. One of them is the strategy series, Heroes of Might and Magic, which is not that at all. That's, strategy.
The more popular one, I would say, too.
Yeah, but the other one it's first person, even first personier than this.
Okay.
You just play multiple characters, not a single person.
You
But
play
it's still
a party.
RPG.
You've got one little screen. You're not really moving around. Like
One little
it's
screen. How many
older, but-
screens did you play with this week?
one big screen. and what I remember from our one experience on the podcast with the traditional Might and Magic game is that you've got it's Dungeons and Dragons. You've got like a map, you've got your characters in the bottom, and then you've got a tiny screen that is your first person view, and your dungeon crawling.
You've got your giant screen that's normal, and then a little bit of a HUD that has like your character faces on it. Oh, sue me!
This was the first one that was like a Elder Scrolls style.
Yes.
At the time, this was like
My
a popular like first person RPG like swing your sword game, and this was the first one in the series that like mimicked that. Yeah. So.
Yeah, they definitely went in a whole new direction here.
And in this game, you control Sereth, who is a wizard's apprentice. And after months or years of training, you are sent to steal a rare artifact, the Shantiri Crystal. And thus your quest begins. How is this related to the rest of the Might and Magic franchise?
Is it?
Story-wise?
Don't know. I think just the world it's in. Even the type of names, some of those characters may be ones I've encountered. I don't remember. I don't know the lore well enough. But I think the places and the setting is really kind of it.
I mean,
like the universe.
Can I say that the whole series is a bit of a mess? Every time it comes up, I'm like, the titles are so long, and then they throw a number at the end. And I'm like, okay, so which branch am I following here? Heroes of Might and Magic 60 or Dark, like they all have the Might and Magic tag, so I get lost. So like, it's okay if you're confused because everyone is. It seemed like they were continuing some characters from a previous game. I just don't know which one.
this is a new enough thing, though, that doesn't matter. You can kind of consider this game
Without the
pretty much
connection,
standalone. Call it Dark Messiah, know that it was inspired by or directly connected to this Might and Magic universe, but like that's not required or gonna color the game really in any way that matters in terms of the story or the gameplay or anything.
This game is a part of our summer pool party, so it was submitted by 2 of our patrons, Dominique and Captain Protein.
Hey,
so
thanks, y'all.
hopefully you enjoy us talking about playing the game that you submitted.
Gameplay.
The Elder Scrolls Dark Messiah of Might and Magic.
Okay.
Don't.
Yeah, don't do that.
Did it not
Boo.
feel very Elder Scrolls to y'all?
Of course.
Maybe a little.
It felt very Morrowind Oblivion-y.
Yeah. It is generic fantasy, sword and shield, magic, dragons, orcs.
2006, like.
Yes. It's very Elder Scrolls in its presentation. I'll give it to you for sure.
Even in like the voice overs and everything, if you're
Character
familiar
models.
with the Elder Scrolls, this is going to feel familiar to you. In fact, almost nothing here is foreign to me. Like it's like I've played this before in other games. I've played versions of this before in other games, except for maybe one thing. But even this one thing that I'm about to bring up is done in different ways. The thing that is unique or different here is what is taught in the tutorial. Before it teaches you how to swing a sword or cast a spell, it teaches you how to use your foot and kick the back of an enemy off into a void. And so the rest of the game then is built around that mechanic of like, yeah, you can swing your sword, yeah, you can cast magic, but your most powerful weapon is your foot.
Yeah, well, not just your foot. Like, more than that, it's interacting with this world in unique ways. Even like 3 seconds later in the tutorial, they give you a sword, and it's not like turn around and stab somebody. It's, oh man, go cut that rope because it's going to have this interaction with the environment around you, and then that's the key to being good at this game. And that's its whole shtick is manipulate your environment, especially as part of the way you do battle, and it's pretty unique in that way.
That's going to be like breaking point for a lot of people jumping into this game because of the Elder Scrolls setup and feel. Those games do like weapon combat. I mean, okay, it's not like great, but your sword swings are at least meaningful and strong, right? And this game is so unique in that it's almost all about environment manipulation, and you're either going to love that or hate that, because it's like you said, before you even swing your sword, he says kick him, but like it's a satisfying kick. Like it's he goes flying ragdoll, the whole thing. It feels really good to kick somebody down a pit.
And you can choose not to. I at least started by kind of playing through and not leaning too heavily into those environmental mechanics, but they're put everywhere and like everywhere and pretty like overtly part of how it wants you to experience this game. So even if you like don't run into it, I feel like you're going to find yourself starting to use those things throughout the game because that's the world that's been presented to you.
Well, even the spells that you're given are in my mind set up to use the environments around you. Yeah. So you're given, or you can get telekinesis, which can move objects, but you're not just moving objects, you're picking up objects and throwing them at the heads of enemies. You can get this ice magic where, yes, you can temporarily freeze an enemy, but the better thing to do is to freeze a piece of ground so that as enemies run at you, they slip and fall.
So funny
thing in the entire game.
Yes.
It's a cartoon slip, guys.
Oh, yeah, dude.
It's a Looney Tunes like whoop, 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 whoop. It's awesome.
And the thing that's fun about that is that it puts the enemy on their back for a couple of seconds. And that's key here, because instead of then having to fight sword to shield, sword to sword, you're able to hold your sword for a charge, and yes, you bring your sword down or whatever weapon you have at the time, and you do a single hit execution.
I didn't love the implementation of the execution. It felt bad.
Like sometimes you couldn't achieve
Sometimes it wouldn't work, first of all, but then two, when it did, holding mouse down for a second to like begin it felt like the wrong input, first of all. And then the animation itself wasn't. I'm looking for a satisfying kind of like execution or like animation, but it just felt really clunky and awkward. You have to use it often, and so I just wish it would have been better, just overall implementation input. But
you have to use it if you're running around hitting things with weapons, but that's the inferior way to play a game. You're given a magic system here. Why not just like burn somebody's body to a crisp? They're not getting back up.
Because you get overwhelmed. I got overwhelmed a lot.
Yeah, they send a lot.
Get killed.
Yeah,
because you die a lot. I died a ton in this game because I don't know. I just think damage was too high.
Like Elder Scrolls games, you have the option to go to build your character RPG style different ways. So you can build where you are mainly melee. You can build where you are mainly stealth. You can build where you are mainly ranged. You can build where you are mainly magic. And then you can do hybrids of all of those. But my experience is that this game wasn't built for stealth or range. You have abilities that set you up for that. You have weapons that set you up for that, but they didn't fine-tune the stealth system, because that's not what it's about. This game was built for kicking and swinging with the sword and using the environment around you to take out your enemies creatively. I think that's the unique gimmick for this game, because everything else is generic fantasy, not bad, just generic fantasy flavor. But that unique thing of using the environment, looking around, seeing what is already cracked so that you can bust it and drop barrels on people or things like that, that's the fun here.
I do think the magic is a little OP too, in a good way.
Yeah,
like I think the magic fits nicely along with what you're saying. And I saw someone this week compare it or call the game a sandbox game. And it really is. I mean,
I think that's good.
It's looking around you thinking, can I somehow get these enemies to land on these spikes? And the answer is yes, which is kind of impressive. That's like Breath of the Wild type sandbox, not that level. But like the fact that you can explore around you and think about ways to like kill enemies outside of swinging a sword, which is hilarious to me. I don't know why they went that route. It's so random. Kicking, you're right, is one of the strongest mechanics in the game. Why? Why did they do that?
I've heard a reviewer say that Dark Messiah is just one giant bar fight. And I think if you go in looking at it like that, you can have some fun.
Good.
But the problem is, if you go in like a traditional game like this, like you're going to do good with sword combat and stuff like that, I think that's where it starts to break down, because I don't think that mechanic, the fight mechanic, is refined well.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like it was bad. I just feel like they tuned it to encourage you to do all of the other things. You take a lot of damage, but you can avoid a lot of it. You can parry, you can hard hit some folks. There's moments that it's a little glitchy, but even as I was like playing with the melee stuff early, as soon as I had the option of going magic, I was a pure magic character, because
of course you were.
Folks, learn how to play RPGs. But like there's skill there too. There's options to parry and to choose a stronger attack and to hit at right times. And I don't know. You guys kind of make it sound like, oh, you run around and just interact with the environment and you're like popping out of the shadows and like ninjaing people. And it can be that, but it doesn't need to be. You certainly can just fight your way all the way through this game. You're gonna have a harder time with it.
Much.
but you certainly can fight or just blast your way through this whole game. 80% of my playthrough was ignoring environments, though, again, I came around to them and started appreciating them, and just going and slinging fireballs, and had a great time doing it.
Dustin, you did say in the setup that it is kind of like generic fantasy, and it is like, fill in the blank fantasy, but I do think the world and like the environment that you're exploring was pretty nice. I enjoyed it a lot. I don't know, again, if this is like based in areas from previous games in the series or like if people would have recognized anything, but just coming into it fresh, I thought it was like a really impressive, like the different stages were really impressive. I liked exploring them, and it didn't feel cut and paste fantasy. Even though it kind of is, it just felt good. I don't know. I liked the exploration of it.
You said exploration, and there's a lot of that here. I loved it. Tons of items for you to discover, and like optional routes for you to choose how to engage your enemy and which way you're gonna go in and do something. Tons of hey, if you go back and like check on a thing, you might find something cool that you missed if you just sort of go straight.
Yeah.
But within that, and even saying that, the game is kind of on a little bit of a rail system. Not bad.
Oh, it's
like
linear.
The areas you can fully explore when you're there, but you're not in a wide world. You're moving sort of stage to stage and specifically navigating kind of through that direction.
I like that.
Which was, it was mostly nice, but there were moments, especially when I couldn't like find my way around, because sometimes stuff is hidden or kind of obscure, or I spent more of the game feeling a little bit lost than I should have. But yes, again, I still, even though it was linear, I still felt like I was exploring, and there were things to explore. That was a nice sort of marriage of those two different sort of game types.
I thought it was kind of refreshing for it to not be open world, because we're talking about, the games around this time, we're all trying to do that. And I thought it was nice to not have to think about that. Like, oh, I got to get sidetracked from the main story. It was just like, do this.
You're just going on this adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the two things that I liked with the exploration, one, you mentioned it, Kenny, but when you found secret areas, like specific areas they deemed to be secret, there would be a little sound effect that played, a little message that popped up saying that you found a secret. That's always encouraging and makes you want to search a little bit more. And then secondly, one of the coolest moments, honestly, that I came across in this game was when I just went into a room. It was empty of enemies, but there was a forge there, a furnace. There was a place with a hammer that you could take the hammer and equip it, and then there was a little ingot. Is that what they're called? Ingot.
Yeah.
And I've just handled so few of those in my life. But if you can actually take the ingot. You can place it in the cauldron. You can turn a wheel to put the cauldron into the flame. You can fan the flame. You can then move the cauldron back around so that it pours into a mold. You can then take the mold and put it back into the flame so that it heats up. Put the sword on the stone and beat it with a hammer, and then get a new and increased weapon. And there's nothing that tells you that except like exploring and trying it out, and that is amazing.
It's a deep level of immersion.
Here's the thing. You say it was all kinds of immersion and you had to just figure it out on your own.
Yes.
But you were not very immersed in the world if that's how you figured it out, because there was a book sitting there directly next to all of your supplies that if you'd picked it up and read what it had to say,
no one does
walks you through all of those steps of how to do it. Now, it's still cool that you have to go do the immersive part of like, but you don't have to figure it out. It gives you instructions.
Listen, I don't use guides in game or out of game. I like to play games on my own.
Yeah, right.
There were a lot of books, and my inventory was full 100% of the time, which I hate in games like this. Just let me.
You were a hoarder.
Whatever. Like, if the game's already going to let me break immersion and carry 32, swords and
shields,
all
you
of
got
these things,
43 shields on your back.
Let me carry whatever. Okay, listen. About halfway through the game, maybe a little bit before that, there's these caverns that you go into. I want to watch Kenny play this because for some reason I've got something in the back of my head that Kenny has arachnophobia or something, and maybe he doesn't. But there's this terrible portion of the game where numerous large spiders come at you. They're poisonous. They leap at you. You're in confined spaces. It is really bad for just the normal gamer. But I feel like for someone like Kenny who says I'm all out of gun when he's playing, what game was that?
Far Cry.
Who like gets panicked very easily. This would be a kind of moment that I would really want to watch you play. Do you have arachnophobia?
I do not have arachnophobia. I do hate when games give me jump scares though. But for some reason, and it's just because I've spent too much time in them, I don't get as scared when I have spells and magic as opposed to guns and ammo. It's the same thing, but I don't know. I feel stronger when I'm a wizard.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm all out of bolts.
I don't love spiders.
No, I don't either. No, very few people do, and if they do, don't trust them. Seriously. If you listen to this podcast and you love spiders, go. We don't need you here. Is that fair?
That's fair.
They
Get
can
out.
stay.
Go.
They can stay.
Shoot,
I welcome them in. Just don't bring the spiders with you.
What do they call people that like spiders? Like
arachno-lovers.
Like them?
All right, listen. Let's talk about story.
Okay. You hate it?
You like story or no?
Well asked.
I like story, yes.
Yeah.
It was fine. It felt
do I like
pretty
this story?
pretty
No.
fantasy. It felt pretty fantasy generic to me. Not in a bad way. Again, that's not the focus here. But I didn't find myself super caring about the overarching objective of what we were working on. I just wanted to jump through the hoops to get there. But it also wasn't like bad. Like there was stuff happening and going on, and I think there's some kind of twists and sort of big surprises that come a little bit later. You have a couple of important like choices you have to make that affect how the game ends. So like there's a little bit there.
I almost want to say it would be much better of a game with a better story, and that's the case for a lot of games, but maybe not, because like I said, I think the core gameplay is just sandboxy, so I was fine not caring about the bad story. I'm guessing, Dustin, that it was a distraction, you really hated it.
It wasn't a distraction, but I did dislike it. So I've already mentioned that there's a lot of traditional fantasy stuff in here, and I don't think that it is bad for that. I thought it was fine. This is where I did think that it was weak. I don't need the most amazing story ever, but I do want something more compelling than this and presented better than this. Ubisoft or whoever is just so bad at writing girls, and there's just like the dialogue with these girls and the overly like just two girls instantly, like one's a very dark side kind of girl, one's a very light side kind of girl, and like just it's just not good.
You didn't like having evil Cortana living in your brain,
in my head,
trying to seduce you.
Dumb. That was just
it was dumb. And I agree with y'all. I was not caring about this is the mission that I'm on. I did not really even open up my objective panel ever because it didn't matter. No. It's just like go to the next place and it will forward it. You know it.
And Kenny, is that historically the case? Like, is story very valued in this series?
No, I don't think so. Again, I'm not like an expert. I've played a few games in the older series and enjoyed it, but they give you this sort of world and the setting, but it's really the world, you're a hero, you're a character, go figure out what you want to do and just go have fun and like play the game the way you want. And so I think it's sort of in vain with kind of the types of experiences they've built.
Aged.
While the game is very easy to obtain and play today, the game, in my experience, is not the easiest to keep running
And
and
a few
playing.
crashes. Yeah.
Oh man, I had a number of crashes.
You play on
It
you
was-
played on Steam?
It was
Yeah, I
not
played
just
on
you.
Steam.
Okay.
No,
it's
no,
not
it
on
was not just
GOG,
me.
first of all. A lot of
It's
people
not on
want it
GOG.
to be, and typically
Sure.
GOG releases are a little more stable from my experience. Is there a workaround? Like, did we
Yes.
do it? Okay, so I did it wrong
Yes.
this week. I just played it.
No, we did it right. It's just you have to. Okay, so the game has a limitation on how much RAM you can use, and so on modern PCs, you use more than
Sure.
2 gigs of RAM.
Yeah.
And if you don't change the file, the INI file
Yeah, yeah,
for the Steam game, which is really easy, you just
That's
need
easy.
an instruction. Then you'll come across many crashes when your computer tries to utilize more RAM, and so you have to take off that limitation. Again, in our
That's no
community
problem.
this week, they figured that out very simply, and so it's a very easy fix. But without that, you're going to crash a number of times.
That's fine.
Alternatively, you can open up your PC, take out RAM,
Your RAM
until
sticks.
you
That's
get
what
to
Kenny
like
did.
2 or less, and then call that a solution.
Taking out one stick is you have more onboard RAM, like without sticks.
Dude.
Listen, I'm
Take
not
that
gonna
out
hold it
too.
against the game that bad because that's a fine workaround. I didn't research it enough. It's on me. But yeah, the crashes sucked. I kept getting really frustrated. But if that's all you have to do, okay.
And there's so many autosaves that it honestly
Yeah.
didn't frustrate me like to the degree that it could have,
Sure.
because it's saving so often that I didn't lose much time. But there were more than 2 times this week where a crash caused me to stop that play session.
Yeah.
Just because I was like,
Yeah.
well, I mean,
That feels bad.
yeah, it
Yeah,
feels
it was
bad.
it was usually the thing that did that for me as well. I'd like play, get into it, be really immersed, crash, be frustrated, be like, fine, I'll come back to it later. Totally my experience.
Something else performance related that I thought was actually quite good was the physics engine that they used here.
It's gotta be good.
It's got to be good if, again, the emphasis is on kicking bodies and them ragdolling. It's got full-on ragdoll physics, but, interacting with levers, doors, passageways, all felt nice. And even in that tutorial section, when you cut the rope, Dustin, in your first play, you were like, oh, like you were surprised because it's, swings the big thing and opens the door. That happens often because of the emphasis on environmental interaction, that I was pleasantly surprised with the physics engine that they had here. And I'm not sure what they built it on, but it was good.
Are you guys pro head bob and
yeah, that's a good
realism
question.
when it comes to like walking sound effects and the like moving of your body, and because they went for a really it's gonna look like your first person style
Yeah.
presentation here, and not everybody likes that.
I think the question is, are you pro bobbing and weaving? Because it's got a little of both. I think it's so unnecessary, personally. It didn't add anything for me. No immersion. It was just it felt weird, and I got used to it. It's fine, but it felt weird because no other game does that, like slunk kind of movement. And like when you turn, your character doesn't immediately turn. You turn their
Head goes first, and then body goes.
and then
yeah.
body,
Yeah,
like a real
kinda.
like that was odd.
See, I noticed it, but it never bothered me at all. So it was fine. It kind of just worked for me.
I got used to it.
me
It's
too.
not a huge deal, but like why?
Yeah.
It's just one of those why things.
Kenny, or Nolan, you said what engine it is? It's Source, which started with Half-Life. So this is the Half-Life engine. This is just just
Okay.
fantasy Half-Life.
That
is what it
makes
was.
a lot of sense. That's a
Yeah.
great base to build a game on. Like
It
this.
is great.
Okay, cool.
And like I said, I think that it is imperative that the physics work well and are fun here, because and work well, maybe not even work well. It's just fun, because that's what this game is about.
Yes.
Skyrim, and I just keep going back to Skyrim. I know who it was after, but Skyrim is kind of my reference. Is not about fun in the same sense. It's about like exploration and fantasy
Story.
and like discovery and all of these things. This is about fun. Set things on fire,
Dude,
break
it really
things,
is.
kick people. And so as long as the engine works with that, then I think that it's success. And it did here. I think that's where I think that's where it holds up and was, I don't know about ahead of its time, but like I love being creative about using the environments. And I had to face a dragon at one point. Obviously, the dragon was OP and going to wreck me, but one of my co-workers that I was with, the lady in the game, told me to use the gate. And so I ran through, I got the dragon's attention, I ran through the entrance, and then I pulled down the gate when his head came through, and the spikes on the door just went through. That's just one of the examples. We've used some others throughout this conversation. I love the creativity there. It's one big bar fight, and that's what made it fun.
Yeah.
I think the graphics worked well in that. I mean, I had them turned up all the way, and then once my RAM limitations were removed, I thought that it was pretty cool environments. When you've got these sandbox environments where it's not open world, but kind of these sandbox environments, I think they can do a lot more with that. They can do more with the textures, the lighting, and I thought for the most part, those were pretty well presented. Fairly generic fantasy, but I thought well presented.
Good tone setting. I thought lighting added to that too in the dark areas, but one area with the graphics that I didn't love were the animations. You will often do this like sword twirl that's like really cool in concept, but if you look at it real good, it's like very ugly. Like I said earlier, the execution animation is like my least favorite thing. It's clunky, it looks bad. But this game is not trying to be realistic. Like you said, it's trying to be fun. And when a game feels good and is fun but looks stupid, I like that. I'm fine with the game looking dumb for the sake of enjoyment versus like this overly realistic, like slow kind of thing that just isn't enjoyable. So I'm not going to really hold it against it. I just thought the animations were kind of poorly done.
We should point out that the way the game was built, the way combat was built, the like logic behind the game and the interactions weren't just built with single player in mind. There was also a multiplayer mode for this game. Now, you're not going to have any luck actually playing it today because of the nature of multiplayer games and you know, server support and people actually like being on and around and playing with you.
But like, how would that even work?
I mean, you just PvP. Like it would
work
just
great. PvP?
Think of that initial tutorial level where instead of guards running in and you're all just brawling with each other, that it's other characters. I think it would actually be a hilarious game to play multiplayer and wish that it hadn't died. But that's an element of the game they did build that you just don't get to even experience today.
It would just be a kickoff.
At least worth pointing out.
No, I've heard it actually had some good classes and some good like division there, and that it was fun. But again, what I heard was that there's a few Russian servers that are still like a few people play, like if you have the direct IP or something. But it's not active today. The music is just environmental for the most part, I thought. So like,
I have zero opinion on the music this week.
I don't know if there was any music, but it wasn't distracting.
I don't know. It's sure.
It's $10 on Steam, not on GOG, unfortunately. If you want a physical copy, it's even cheaper, $7 used. But if you want a new physical copy, then it's $52 new.
Which you don't.
You don't.
You might.
Final thoughts.
At the end of each and every one of our episodes, we determine whether or not the game gets our vote for New Game Plus status, which is our general thumbs up or thumbs down. It does require 2/3 of the vote to swing one way or the other. Nolan, what are your thoughts? Final thoughts, conclusive thoughts on Dark Messiah Might and Magic Elements the 5th.
It's fun. I was excited. Let me start over. It's fun. I was excited to play the game because it looked like Oblivion, which is one of my favorite all-time first-person RPGs. And it's been a long time since I've played a game in that vein. So, and it's not like Skyrim to me. It's more like Oblivion and like the clunkier and, like I said, kind of dumb-looking first-person RPGs, like the early days of it. And that just appeals to me for some reason. But what really makes the game so enjoyable for me is the sandbox approach that I still have no clue why they did this. When, sword combat, just good combat mechanics were the thing back then, they decided to make it almost entirely magic / mess with the environment to kill enemies. I guess that goes back to the Thief roots. I know some of the Thief devs actually worked on this game. So maybe there's some of that, but there's no sneaking. It's literally just a chaotic mess of a combat system, but it's so enjoyable to me. It really appealed to me. I care nothing about the story.
You can sneak. It just doesn't work well.
It doesn't work well. Combat doesn't work well. It's not good. Like, sword combat doesn't feel good. But swinging a chandelier into an enemy is the best thing of all time. I give it New Game Plus because it is just straight up fun. It's just fun.
Kenny?
Let me start on a soapbox.
No.
If you're going to sell a game that is an old game, you are responsible for making sure it can still be played on most people's systems. Or you should be, at least. That's the primary thing that you can still monetize in offering an old game. GOG tends to do that pretty well with as often as they can. Again, I know this is a big ask and not an easy thing, and what that means game to game is going to be completely different. But I think you have some amount of responsibility to try. And I don't think they tried. And for a lot of people, they're not going to go in and edit files and tweak their system just to be able to play an old game. They want to hit download now and play. And if you're not that person who's willing to take those extra steps, this game is going to crash on you and it's going to be frustrating. And that is not okay. That said, this game gets a huge New Game Plus from me.
This guy.
Because we are those people. Our job is to get over some of those hurdles and experience the game anyways. So, buyer beware, know what you're getting into. But given that that's not a problem for you or you're willing to solve those issues yourself, this is so much fun. It's wild, it's crazy, it's chaotic. The magic system and the way it interacts with the world is fun. The exploration is rewarding. It's just, this game's just a hoot, to use old man terminology. This game's a hoot, and I think everyone should play it. So yeah, New Game Plus, for sure.
There's not much more that I need to say. I agree with all of what y'all said. I will say that I think some of that luster fades the longer you play because the novelty of it wears off a little bit. Sure. But they were really smart, and it is not a long game at all. Compared to other RPGs of the time. I didn't finish it. I know that one of our listeners, or I think it's Captain Protein even, he did 3 runs this week on each of the difficulties. He's played it before, of course, so he knows the game. But he beat the game in a day, in a sitting. So it's not an exceptionally long game. I think even your first time through, you can beat it in 10 hours. And so I think they were smart with that because they knew, hey, this doesn't need to go on longer than it needs to go on. And I do think that it's not necessarily going to be for everyone, because if you like the traditional slash game and not the work with environments, then it might not be for you. However, it's a lot of fun. It's silly. It's funny. I laughed a lot this week. And using your skills and the environment around you, it's very silly. And I'd give it my vote for New Game Plus status.
I do see fans of this series looking at this game and being like, what is this? And then they go back and play, the strategy games. I think it's such a random entry, but
it's a fun one.
Yeah.
So I think, anyways, Dark Messiah of Might and Magic is New Game Plus certified. But what did you think? We had 235 votes on YouTube. 23% said yes, it's worth playing today. 9% said no. And 68%, I've never played it before.
Good spread.
We had many of you write in. Cecil said, since Ubisoft acquired the franchise in 2003, they released 3 games I've enjoyed: Clash of Heroes, Might and Magic X, I'd assume 10, Legacy, and Dark Messiah, a game I would describe as endearingly bad. A bog-standard first-person RPG in the style of Thief, but instead of being an immersive sim, the greatest fun to be had is what you can subject the poor ragdolls to, where the kick button is the strongest tool in your arsenal for its environmental control. When the story is so bog-standard, but delivered with such amateur enthusiasm, I can't help but smirk. Where the decision was made to include an ending that just kills any forward momentum this company's take on the franchise had, meaning every other release going forward had to be either a prequel or otherwise set in a distant past, purely as a necessity. Dark Messiah is by and large a mediocre game that you don't have to play for yourself, but it is one I would encourage people to check out anytime it comes up on a bad games block at GDQ, because it is so fun to watch the engine break.
They play this in the bad games block?
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
Really? I don't know if it's that memeable. Like,
no.
All of those things you named are precisely why I enjoyed the game.
Right. Unless, like, you can break the engine so much so that it becomes
probably
a bad, like a silly thing, which quite possibly. Jake said, Might and Magic Dark Messiah. Ooh. You got those twisted, Jake. The game that kept the Might and Magic name, but completely departed from everything that drew me to Might and Magic. M&M, that's what I'm going to call it from now on, used to be a series about leading a team of adventurers through a very big open world with tight tactics, turn-based combat, and often mediocre first-person graphics. I loved making your party of 4 to 6 at the start, leveling them up, and developing them as the game continued. The story often was a bit meh, but tons of spells, class abilities, and combos kept me playing. Unfortunately, Dark Messiah exchanged most of this for a flashier first-person action RPG style that fit closer with perceived desires of, at the time, modern audiences. I remember feeling like the game was extremely shallow and generic compared to previous games, emphasizing quick slashing rather than well-planned out spell combos and teams. With a mediocre world and bland combat, this game is a lot of flash with little substance. No New Game Plus for me.
I mean, you got to adapt a little, right? Like what audiences are expecting.
I think you just need to assume that this is a completely different game. I think he's caught up on the fact that it's this Might and Magic game, but like different company.
That's what I'm saying.
Different approach to the game. Like refresh it. Think of this almost like you would like a single player version of a crazy couch co-op first person shooter where you're sitting down and just being frantic with your friends, except not your friends because it's just crazy AI. And it's going to feel different than if you're comparing it to these other games.
But a fair complaint, if you come into this Might and Magic game with Might and Magic experience, thinking it's going to be a Might and Magic game, and then it's not a Might and Magic game, I think that can turn you off.
Oh, there were moments throughout the week that I was like, oh, this is great, but I also want to go play Might and Magic 6 or Might and Magic 7 or some of the ones I'm familiar with that I had so much fun with. They're just a completely different game.
2 more pieces of commentary. This is from Dom and Captain Protein, those 2 that submitted the game for us to play this week. So Dom said, Dark Messiah of Might and Magic may have been the first PC game that taught me how to play with a mouse and keyboard. For me, this was prior to Elder Scrolls or any other Western RPGs, and I have fond memories of the game. I was worried when going back it wouldn't have aged well, but I'm glad to say that it's just as enjoyable as I remember. The first-person approach kept me immersed, and the combat style feels surprisingly smooth. I also can't forget to mention the combination of the physics engine and the environmental interactions that still seem impressive even today. I wouldn't go into this game thinking it will have the same depth as Might and Magic that the franchise is known for, but instead you'll find a fun and lighthearted spin-off that doesn't take itself too seriously. I give Dark Messiah Might and Magic New Game Plus.
That's always nice to see that things hold up the way you hope they do, even though you're like, it's probably not gonna.
Right, because plenty do not. And then finally, Captain Protein said Dark Messiah of Might and Magic. A little bit of roleplay and plenty of action. Gameplay will vary depending on which skills players decide to invest in, and game has a sandboxy design where the levels tend to give the player freedom in how they approach objectives and combat. This all works well to enable and encourage different styles of play, as well as exploring and replaying. For first-timers, the story and characters are presented in a way that keep the player wondering what'll happen next, and then there is, of course, a twist and a reveal. The one issue this game has in it is its optimization. The game has a tendency to randomly crash, which is annoying. Thankfully, this is mitigated by a solid autosave system. The game runs 100% silky smooth, even on modern PCs, if you just apply some love and care. All in all, it's a short game where you can breeze through or challenge yourself on higher difficulties, and no matter if you fancy playing a wizard, a warrior, or a sneak, you will always be armed with a mighty boot that could belong in a movie about Spartans, all the while adventuring in a world full of conveniently placed sharp objects.
This is Sparta playthrough? You're just no weapons, kick only?
Captain Protein, that was his final run of the week. He was trying a no weapons.
Love it.
So he was trying magic and boot.
Love it.
And so that's got to be
Sparta
fun.
run.
I don't know if it's possible, but that would be a fun GDQ to watch this game with boot only.
Kick percent, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for sending in your thoughts on the retro game of the week. You can do that each and every week to ngppodcast@gmail.com, or we've got a commentary channel in our Discord. We'd love to include your thoughts as a part of our show next week. And sorry if you wrote in and we weren't able to read your commentary. We can't read all of your commentary, but we still read it, just not live on the air. We're going to put aside Dark Messiah of Might and Magic, and we're going to randomly select. Remember, this is the off week. We're still in the summer pool party,
off week.
but it's the off week. So we are randomly selecting from our Retro Master list. So the game that we're going to be playing all together for the next 7 days is... We're going to be playing a video game.
Oh, sick.
Weird.
Yep. This one came out in 1991, thankfully, because we've been in the 2000 eras.
Yeah.
We're ready to go back.
Way
We're
too
retro. We're
some
going to
old
the
school.
Nintendo Entertainment System.
Love it.
Classic.
It was developed by Chris Gray Enterprises
I
and
love Chris
published
Gray.
by Mindscape.
I love
I don't
Chris Gray.
I don't think you know who Chris Gray is.
I feel like anytime there's a single person's name, like
Right?
as a publisher,
Yeah.
developer, I get a little scared. I'm like, are you going to tell me this is edutainment?
Chris Gray released under Chris Gray Enterprises 5 games, including Whirl-a-Nerd, Infiltrator Part 2 the next day, and The Young Indiana Jones Chronicles.
I'm out.
He also released this one. This is the 5th one.
Okay.
It is loosely based on the Environmentalist animated series.
No
And
way.
we are going to be playing
Captain
dun,
Planet?
dun, dun, na,
Really?
dun, na, na, na.
right.
Captain Planet and the Planeteers.
So,
Okay.
Captain Planet is like Boomer. I don't know it.
Oh, it's
And-
me and Kenny then.
Yeah, I don't care. Yeah, Kenny, I hate Captain Planet. How about that? That's what
Oh,
we're going to go into that
It's because
episode
you
with.
hate the planet and you don't want to recycle.
That's correct. Recycling doesn't do anything anyways.
Oh, I mean, you're
Hard
not too
facts,
far
people.
off.
Hard facts.
But I will say we need to come next week knowing which of the rings you wield.
I don't know what that is.
Nolan is wrong about everything. Captain Planet is legit. I'm super excited to get into this IP. It's ridiculous. I have, like, as an adult, gone back and watched some of the shows for, like, nostalgia's sake, and it absolutely is everything that you think it is in all of the best and the worst ways. I don't know how well it'll translate to a video game, so
NES?
I'm
Oh my God.
cautiously optimistic, but a little bit terrified.
Well, again, determine which ring that you wield and play along with us, Captain Planet and the Planeteers.
Discord.gg/NG. No. Discord.gg/New Game Plus.
That's it.
I'm sick.
Week after this, hopping back in the summer pool party mode. Not too late to get involved. If you want to support us, hit up patreon.com. You will not only get a vote in the next episode, but you'll join a huge list of people that help keep this podcast trucking. Like our amazing director level supporters, Bro Jim and Garlisle, who literally are the best people in the world. All 8 billion of them.
I'd say on the
and
planet.
On the planet ears. And our producers, Adam and Marley and Anton and Ben Brunt, Captain Protein, Dan, D.H. Bowser, Francesca, Gimbin, Jared, Joey, Jordan, J. Robert, Justin, Clint, Nick Nack, Corey, Maxima, Mr. Lattes, Nawel, Sage, and Shauna Thomas, Unbelievable, William, and Zion. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
You truly live in our heart.
Heart. You can find us on social media. That's Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, and YouTube. Links are in the show notes. Listen directly on any podcast provider of your choice. Make sure you subscribe so that you are the first to get new NGP episodes. And while you're at it, please leave a kind rating and review. Our video episode was edited by our friend Dylan. Our audio episode was edited and produced by our friend Dan Willett. Join us next week as we play Captain Planet and the Planeteers. Until then, I'm still Kicky McKickerson.
I don't know what to say.
Of course
that.
he likes them.
Oh, man.
I'm sick.
Sick boys, and this has been New Game Plus.